This is the Speaking of Writers podcast. I'm Steve Richards. The book is The Spanish Teacher, the author, Barbara de la Cuesta. The novel was described as maintaining an accumulating power which holds onto a reader's attention, not only through the forceful figure of Ordonez, but by demonstrating acutely how ordinary lives are impacted by the underlying social and political landscape. Compelling reading from Tom Tolnay, publisher. It also was described, the Spanish teacher, with everything to thrill you, pace, a great balance of description, gesture, and action, charmed, perfectly tuned dialogue, and most notably, a character we follow as closely and sympathetically as if we were living right there inside the story with him, by Don Berger, the judge for the Gavel Press Novel Award, which this book was a winner of. Barbara de la Cuesta has taught English literature and Spanish on the secondary and college levels. She is currently teaching English as a second language. She has a master's degree in creative nonfiction from Lesley College in Massachusetts. This was her first published novel back in 2017, and I'm happy to have Barbara join me now. Welcome to the program, Barbara.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So, what is this novel all about?
This novel started out with a real incident. I was teaching at a private school in Colombia, and it was an English-speaking school that mostly served American companies' children. But it was also attended by wealthy Colombians. So the school employed two teachers to teach Spanish, but they weren't very serious about it. And Ordonez, who was a slightly known to me young man at the time, protested against it, and he wrote letters to the Ministry of Education. He wrote letters to the parents of the Colombian students, and he stirred up quite a controversy. He didn't stick to the curriculum, which was to teach very simple little bits of Spanish. And he embarked on telling the whole story of the War for Independence, taking all the parts, particularly the part of Simon Bolivar, the liberator. And he made quite a spectacle of himself telling this story, which he felt his students should know. And he got himself fired. And that's as far as the real incident goes. I made him a band journalist who was making a bare living by teaching at this school part-time. So he was a writer. His anything he wrote was banned at the time by the government. He begins to wonder about his life and how had he become so poor? And he falls in love with a young girl who comes to teach at the school. After he's fired, they take up together. They meet at a costume party during festival, during Carnival, gradually take up together. And at one point, he's so embittered by his poverty, as she must see it, that he cheats a cousin out of the deed to a remote gold mine, and the two of them go to exploit it. And he becomes someone other than the banned, impoverished journalist. He kind of almost makes a go of the gold mine, but a farmer who had been cheated by his cousin, the owner of the original owner of the mine, cheated of his and poisoned by a mercury poisoning in a river, shoots him. So the rest is a kind of test of who he really is. Can she still love him? Can she put up with the hardship of their relationship and the poverty. And they pass the test in the end. He recovers, but he's crippled. She kind of faces her own need to become a part of his world. She loves him deeply. This relationship fills something in her that needed something that would deeply admired him. They marry. And the fact that they marry in this remote place is a change. The novel has been recently republished. The fact was, during COVID, I began writing screenplays, and I wrote a screenplay version of this book where I kind of found my way to a different ending, a better ending, and explored things that I hadn't explored. So I'm very happy with the second version and glad I did it. That's the story.
Barbara, you just said you wrote the screenplay for this too. Different challenges of writing screenplays and novels. Obviously, the novels are longer, being one.
Absolutely. I was a little bit prepared for that because during one period in my life, I wrote stage plays. I actually had a couple stage plays produced. So I was ready for the handling everything with dialogue. That's the chief. But I also found my way to making her, Dory West, the school teacher who loves him, making her more deep and more interesting beyond the fact of her faithfulness to him.
Were there any moments or characters, sounds like Dory and of course Ordonez, any moments or characters in the novel you really enjoyed writing or exploring? Not to give away too much with the moments.
I really enjoyed his dramatic retelling of the War for Independence in South America,
Mhm.
in which he stands up on chairs and rants and raves and frightens the children. And I enjoyed that part. And I enjoyed the part of, I did a lot of research on gold mining and the part of Ordonez becoming a miner. He actually has experience in mining. His family were miners. And he explores all the old-fashioned ways of getting gold out of the land, purifying it or not purifying it, which is tricky because it poisons the water. I also knew a relative of my Colombian husband who was a gold miner, so
Mm.
that was interesting.
Barbara, you've been writing for years now. You've taught English literature. You published stories in the California Quarterly, Texas Review, and the New Ohio Review. This was, as I mentioned earlier, your first published novel. Has your writing changed over the years? Do you find yourself trying new techniques?
Yes, my latest novel was completely experimental, and it had to do with the telling of one day in the city of Waltham, Massachusetts, and it's quite experimental, hybrid of poetry and prose.
Did you always want to become a writer?
Since I was 6.
Was it in your DNA? Your parents inspired you? A teacher, a librarian?
My brother is a newspaper man and a reporter, but as for a pundit. But as far as anyone in my background, no.
What's the most surprising thing you learned while writing this book?
I think I learned that Latin American culture, which is so different, filled a hole in my soul somehow. I found a lot of needs that were filled, especially my religious faith. I loved Colombia, I loved, sadly, Venezuela, where I also lived. In Venezuela, I worked as a journalist for the Caracas Daily Journal and did a lot of traveling.
And what do you hope your readers take away from The Spanish Teacher?
I hope they can understand a man like Ordonez, who's very flawed, but very passionate, who finally accepts his poverty, because the deal he made with his cousin to get this deed to the mine was to take on his greedy nature, which made him rich, finding that while he could fill that role, it was deeply, it made him deeply unhappy. Coming to accept his role as a critic of his country, free to, the deal was to give up publishing articles about this cousin's corruption, to take back that role of loving and criticizing a country.
And what is next for you in your writing?
Well, I wrote a screenplay for all my novels, five of them, one unpublished. And finding the openings for screenwriting are far more trustworthy and open than for novels. So that's what I do now. I send out screenplays.
Well, this book, The Spanish Teacher, is available at barnesandnoble.com and also amazon.com as well. The author, Barbara Della Cuesta. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
And this is the Speaking of Writers podcast. I'm Steve Richards.